Gunfire ripped the sterile corridor, brass skittering like insects on tile. Evan Cole said. Sector Charlie was cleared. The lights strobed, throwing a dozen ghosts across armored doors. Smoke swelled from a ruptured vent and tasted like burnt wiring. Evan Cole knelt beside a bleeding private who clutched his chest. Lucas Reed said, "Listen." The boy pressed a blood slick to Evan's glove and dragged a breath. Lucas Reed said, "Vance." The name hit harder than the shots. Evan Cole said, "That name is Scrub." Sirens climbed the hall. A steel bin burned at the junction, pages curling like moths. Evan Cole snatched a loose sheet that sailed from the flame. The header read Operations Larkspur, stamped "Do Not Exist" in crooked ink. Behind him, a shadow crossed the glass and paused at the security camera. Evan Cole said, "Identify." The monitor spat snow, then a single frame. A woman in matte black, eyes unreadable. She lifted 2 fingers, almost polite, and the feed cut to black. Lucas Reed said, "He walks." The pulse went flat. The corridor echoed with the wrong kind of silence. Evan Cole stood, file page trembling, and realized the war had walked into the safe zone. The alarms lagged behind the bullets, and the corridor smelled like coins and ozone. Evan Cole said, "Seal the wing and get me medics." He stripped his gloves and folded gauze over the wound. A security badge dangled from Lucas Reed's torn vest. Lucas Reed said, "You're late." Evan Cole said, "Keep pressure." Static crawled the radio like frost. General Marcus Halden said, "Report status, Captain." The rank tasted wrong inside the blood mist. Evan Cole said, "Breach on Charlie, casualties unknown." He palmed the loose page into his sleeve. Boots thundered from the far stairwell and slowed, as if listening. The camera above the junction glowed red, then dimmed to a blind dot. A sprinkler wept a thread of water that hissed on the barrel fire. Lucas Reed said, "Tell them I tried." The heartbeat traced a weak drum on the monitor. Evan Cole said, "Stay with me." The fire popped and spit charcoal at his boots. He glanced at the door that should not exist and found it ajar. Someone had keyed a code with clean hands while the floor turned to sludge. Evan Cole said, "We were supposed to be invisible." No one answered. The smoke thinned, and ash settled like gray snow on the safe sign. The medics took the body, and the hall swallowed the noise as if ashamed. Evan Cole said, "Route me to archives." He moved through a maintenance shaft that smelled of bleach and rain. The basement records room hummed like a hive behind a keypad that trusted the wrong people. He slid the page beneath a folder and woke a terminal with a battered wristband. Evan Cole said, "Query, Larkspur." The screen returned a blank square and a denial code that did not exist yesterday. Liam Drake said, "You tripped a net." The voice came soft on a private line that was not supposed to ring. "Evan Cole," said Lucas named Vance. The air tightened. Liam Drake said, "Names are traps." A camera dome rotated, pretending to be asleep. Evan Cole said, "Who opened Charlie?" The cursor blinked like a ticking tooth. General Marcus Halden said, "Stand down and file your report." The call overrode the room and erased the last 4 minutes. Evan Cole watched the buffer purge itself and felt the floor tilt. Someone wanted the story to begin without a witness, and he was late again. The garage held the night like a held breath, concrete wet with city drizzle. Grace Cole said, "You left blood on the doormat." She handed over a spare key and kept her eyes on the ramp mirrors. Evan Cole said, "A page slipped the fire." Her fingers tightened, then relaxed as if she had practiced the gesture. A black SUV idled 3 levels up with lights off and patients on. Grace Cole said, "We have neighbors who ask neat questions." Evan Cole said, "If anyone comes, you call and then you run." He hated the order and the way it felt rehearsed. A red dot winked on a pillar and then burrowed under shadow. Iris Kade stood by the pay station like a mannequin that learned to breathe. Evan Cole said, "We are not alone." Grace Cole said, "You never are." A security camera arced across them and pretended to look elsewhere. The elevator arrived with the sad chime of a mall at closing. Evan Cole said, "Trust me." Grace Cole said, "I'm trying." He stepped in, and the doors blinked chrome over his reflection. The SUV shifted position without turning on its lights, and the rain thickened to a sheet. The motel had carpets that drank secrets, and a humming fridge that never cooled. Evan Cole said, "Lights low." He taped the curtains and laid the salvaged page on the desk. A UV wand woke specks of text that swam like plankton in a dark sea. The margin bloomed with coordinates and a name that should not write itself. Evan Cole said, "Noah Vance." The air tasted like coins again. A paid phone buzzed and crawled across the wood like a beetle. Nina Park said, "You have what burned." Her whisper had the careful shape of someone alone in a closet. Evan Cole said, "They erased records and sent a cleaner." The lamp flickered in quiet agreement. Nina Park said, "There is a door under the river." A pause cracked the line. Nina Park said, "If you reach it, you do not call me again." The call ended with the softest click. He copied the microprint and packed the room back into silence. He tucked the phone behind the vent and mapped the route on the inside of a matchbook. Outside, a train rolled by like a slow verdict, and the walls forgot his name. The river tunnel groaned like an old lung, dripping secrets into the dark. Evan Cole said, "This isn't a checkpoint, it's a burial site." The echo gave his words too many shadows. Grace Cole followed, whispering, "Why are you carrying ghosts into our home?" Her fingers brushed the damp wall as if checking it was real. Evan Cole said, "Because they're hunting us with lies." The flashlight jittered on rusted rails, cutting between graffiti warnings and rat nests. A train above thundered like muffled artillery. Evan's chest still burned from the corridor smoke, and he could not stop replaying Lucas Reed's last breath. Grace Cole said, "You look like you already died there." He stopped, lowering the salvaged page under the beam, the ink shimmering where the water kissed it. The words looked less like orders and more like a curse. Evan Cole said, "They don't write history, they erase it." In the distance, a hatch slammed. Grace Cole gripped his arm. The tunnel air changed, colder, like a machine had started breathing. Evan Cole said, "Someone knows we're here." The hatch groaned open, and Liam Drake stepped out like a man who had been hiding too long. Liam Drake said, "You should have burned that page." He wore the same analyst badge he once mocked. Evan Cole said, "Then why are you here?" Liam Drake's eyes darted at the dripping ceiling, counting cameras that weren't there. Grace Cole whispered, "Who is he?" Evan Cole said, "An analyst who knows where the bodies are buried." Liam Drake said, "No, I only know the lies they wrote instead." His fingers shook as he lit a cigarette that burned damp and weak. The smoke curled around the stale tunnel like a warning. Evan Cole said, "Lucas named Vance." Liam Drake flinched, then dropped the cigarette into a puddle. Liam Drake said, "You shouldn't speak that name here." The rails hummed under unseen weight. Grace Cole said, "What's coming?" Liam Drake said, "Not what, who, and they don't knock twice." The whistle of the approaching train pressed air through the tunnel like a giant exhale. Liam Drake said, "They embedded watchers in every system. You think you're ghosts, but you're just coordinates waiting to be traced." Evan Cole said, "Then give me something real." Liam Drake pulled a folded note from his boot and handed it like poison. Grace Cole said, "Why help us?" Liam Drake said, "Because I want to breathe one day without waiting for a bullet." The rails vibrated, throwing their words into fragments. Evan Cole opened the note, coordinates scratched in frantic ink, a river lock marked in circles. Liam Drake said, "You didn't hear this from me." His hands shook so hard the lighter almost dropped again. The train stormed past, light slicing their faces into strips of fear. Evan Cole said, "What's at the lock?" Liam Drake whispered, "A name not in your files." The echo swallowed his words like they were already redacted. They emerged from the tunnel into a forgotten service chamber, Brick walls dripping mold. Grace Cole said, "This isn't survival, it's suicide." Evan Cole said, "Survival is pretending we don't know." The chamber had maps nailed crooked on cork, dates crossed in red grease pencil. Liam Drake said, "I'm not staying." They follow the ink, not the trail. He ripped a map corner, stuffed it in Evan's hand, and backed toward a vent. Evan Cole said, "They'll find you faster." Liam Drake said, "Then I die faster, but not with you." Grace Cole whispered, "He's running from his own shadow." Liam Drake vanished into the vent, his breath rasping like an animal. Evan Cole studied the ripped corner, marked with a circle and 3 letters, VNC. The chamber's lone bulb flickered, buzzing like a fly caught in glass. Grace Cole said, "What if Vance is already waiting?" Evan Cole said, "Then we stop hiding." The motel window hummed with neon outside, and Evan Cole spread the ripped map on the desk. Grace Cole said, "Every mark looks like a grave." The page smelled of mold and smoke. Evan Cole said, "They erased Vance from the books, but not from the ground." He tapped the circled lock coordinates, feeling the ink cut deeper than paper. Grace Cole said, "Why trust Liam?" Evan Cole said, "Because fear tells fewer lies than loyalty." The neon buzz cracked like a faulty heartbeat. Grace Cole said, "We could still run." Evan Cole said, "Run where?" "They'll find us in the dark, in the quiet, in the places we love." He stared at the circled letters, VNC, and felt the corridor's silence return. Grace Cole touched his arm, softer than the noise deserved. Grace Cole said, "Then we fight. But don't let them turn you into them." Outside, the neon flickered and painted them both in blood-colored light. The lock gates towered like teeth gnawed by time, dripping rust into the river below. Evan Cole said, "This is where the ink led us." Grace Cole hugged her coat against the night wind. Grace Cole said, "It feels like a place built to drown names." The floodlights across the yard buzzed, but stayed too dim, as if starved of power on purpose. Evan Cole laid the map corner against a railing, the letters VNC almost glowing under the damp. A voice slid through the dark like oil. Iris Kade said, "You should have burned it all." She stood on the far catwalk, matte black coat blending with shadow, hands calm at her sides. Grace Cole whispered, "She was at the garage." Evan Cole said, "She's everywhere they don't want light." The river licked the walls with slow, hungry sounds. Iris Kade said, "You still think truth is your shield." She leaned on the rail like she owned the water. Evan Cole said, "Truth is the only weapon left." The gates groaned with a low moan that swallowed his words. The catwalk groaned as Iris Kade stepped closer, her boots echoing like verdicts. Iris Kade said, "You serve a dead oath, Evan." He raised the page, shaking with damp. Evan Cole said, "Then why erase what never existed?" Iris tilted her head, almost pitying. Iris Kade said, "Because truth feeds wars more than lies." Grace Cole clutched the rail, as if bracing for a fall. Grace Cole said, "Why us?" Iris said, "Because you looked where no one told you to." Floodlights snapped off, plunging them into deeper blue. Evan Cole said, "You killed Lucas." Iris Kade's lips barely moved. Iris Kade said, "No, I just cleaned up the silence." The river surged louder, swallowing her voice, but the weight of her words clung like chains. The darkness pressed close until a lone bulb inside the lockhouse flickered alive. Evan Cole dragged Grace toward it, boots clanging. Inside, dusty monitors sputtered static. Grace Cole said, "They're watching." Evan Cole said, "They've always been." On the central screen, a face resolved from noise. General Marcus Halden, calm as a teacher. Marcus Halden said, "You are trespassing on history." Evan Cole said, "You built history on corpses." The general's eyes never blinked, lit flat by cold fluorescence. Marcus Halden said, "And yet you wore the medals." Grace Cole whispered, "He's baiting you." Evan Cole pressed the page against the screen. Evan Cole said Vance wasn't erased. He was buried here. The general's smile tightened. Marcus Halden said, "If you dig, you won't like what crawls out." The monitor snapped black. The monitor's hum faded, replaced by boots above. Grace Cole said, "We need to go." Evan Cole pulled her to the maintenance stairwell. Shadows of armed men swept across the grated floor. Iris Kade's voice drifted through the metal. Iris Kade said, "Stand down, and no one dies ugly." Evan Cole whispered, "She's lying." They descended into dripping pipes that smelled of rust and algae. Grace Cole said, "This is madness." Evan Cole said, "Madness is the only cover left." The stairwell shook as floodgates shifted. Cold spray hit their faces. Grace Cole said, "They'll drown us in here." Evan Cole said, "Then we climb." His hand found the rail, slick with mildew, and they vanished deeper into the bowels of the lock, as gunmetal shadows hunted above. The stairwell opened into a chamber lined with water tanks, pumps coughing in the dark. Grace Cole said, "Where does this lead?" Evan Cole said, "To whatever they didn't want us to see." A red emergency light spun weakly, painting the walls with blood haze. At the center, chained to a pipe, was a man barely alive. His beard was wild, his uniform shredded, eyes sunken hollows. Evan Cole said, "God." Grace Cole whispered, "Who is he?" The man lifted his head, cracked lips trembling. Ghost said, "They never killed me. They buried me." His voice was gravel, but the name on his dog tags was clear, Noah Vance. Evan Cole said, "You're supposed to be a ghost." Noah Vance said, "I am." His chains rattled with the sound of history unburied. The chamber air clung thick with mildew and old iron. Noah Vance said, "They erased me to keep the war alive." His chains rattled as he shifted, every movement like a confession dragged from rust. Evan Cole said, "They told us you died on deployment." Noah Vance's cracked lips curled. Noah Vance said, "Dead men don't write orders." Grace Cole pressed closer to Evan, voice trembling. Grace Cole said, "If they hid him here, what else did they bury?" Evan Cole's grip tightened on the page, knuckles bone white. Evan Cole said, "What operation was Larkspur?" Noah Vance coughed blood into his beard and spat words like broken glass. Noah Vance said, "They made enemies because war needed feeding. Whole campaign scripted." The red light spun shadows that danced like executioners on the wall. Evan Cole whispered, "Everything we fought for was theater." Noah Vance laughed without mirth. Noah Vance said, "And you were the lead actor." The pumps thudded like a second heart in the chamber. Evan Cole said, "Who signed the orders?" Noah Vance strained against his chains, the clink louder than his voice. "Noah Vance," said Marcus Halden. "He called it sacrifice." Grace Cole gasped, backing into the damp brick. Grace Cole said, "That's the general who called you." Evan Cole's breath hardened. Evan Cole said, "He's the one feeding the machine." Noah Vance's head dipped, his eyes half closed. Noah Vance said, "And Iris Kade cleanse what he can't hide." The name dragged through the chamber like a knife. Evan Cole said, "You've been their prisoner for years." Noah Vance said, "I've been their secret." Grace Cole whispered, "If this leaks." Evan Cole cut her off. Evan Cole said, "Then the whole war burns." A metallic groan split the chamber, and the far hatch swung open. Iris Kade stepped in, pistol low, expression unreadable. Iris Kade said, "You weren't supposed to find him." Evan Cole pulled Grace behind him, raising the map scrap like proof. Evan Cole said, "You're cleaning ghosts now." Iris Kade tilted her head. Iris Kade said, "Ghosts talk too much." Noah Vance laughed weakly, blood dripping down his chin. Noah Vance said, "She's afraid of me." Iris Kade's eyes flickered, but her voice stayed calm. Iris Kade said, "Afraid? No. I'm annoyed." The pistol rose, leveled steady. Grace Cole whispered, "Shall kill him." Evan Cole stepped forward, voice low. Evan Cole said, "You fire that gun, and even the silence will scream." The chamber froze, red light sweeping over them like a metronome of dread. The moment cracked with floodgate thunder. Water rushed through pipes, shaking the walls. Iris Kade steadied her aim, but Evan lunged, knocking her wrist. The pistol barked, the shot ricocheting sparks from the steel. Grace Cole screamed, clutching Evan's arm as the chamber echoed with gunpowder and water roar. Noah Vance said, "She can't kill me without proving I'm alive." Iris Kade snarled, grabbing Evan by the collar. Iris Kade said, "You don't know how deep this goes." Evan Cole shoved her back, words cutting. Evan Cole said, "I don't need depth, I need daylight." Her eyes darkened, something almost human slipping. Iris Kade said, "Daylight kills faster than bullets." The pipes groaned again, mist thickening as if the lock itself wanted them drowned. The floodwaters spilled into the chamber, rising around their boots. Iris Kade retreated toward the hatch, her pistol lowered. Iris Kade said, "This ends when Halden says it does." She vanished into steam, leaving her words to echo like orders carved in stone. Grace Cole clung to Evan, eyes wide with fear. Grace Cole said, "We can't leave him here." Evan Cole waited to Noah Vance, tearing at the chains with soaked gloves. Evan Cole said, "No one stays buried." Noah Vance lifted his head, weak smile cutting through his ruin. Noah Vance said, "You don't know what freedom costs." Evan Cole said, "Then I'll pay double." The water climbed higher, swallowing the rust, and the chamber groaned like a tomb refusing to stay closed. The storm outside broke open the sky as Evan Cole dragged Noah Vance free of the chains. The chamber groaned with water that bit higher up their legs. Grace Cole said, "We'll drown in here." Evan Cole hauled Vance's frail body across slick concrete, his voice raw. Evan Cole said, "Not tonight." The hatch above banged open, boots hammering the steel. Iris Kade's voice cut through the flood roar. Iris Kade said, "You've stolen a dead man." Marcus Halden's voice followed, broadcast cold over speakers. Marcus Halden said, "You think truth will save you. Truth is the war." Evan Cole's jaw locked, lifting Vance toward the stairwell. Evan Cole said, "Truth ends wars." Halden's laugh rumbled across the chamber, deeper than the rising flood. Marcus Halden said, "Then prepare for the last battle you'll ever fight." The red light spun faster, as if the chamber itself heard its own execution order. They burst into the lockyard, rain hammering like artillery, floodlights bleaching the concrete. Grace Cole said, "They're everywhere." Armed operatives fanned out in silence, rifles raised. Evan Cole steadied Vance against a support beam, voice steady though his hands shook. Evan Cole said, "Stay behind me." Marcus Halden strode from the command trailer, rain soaking his uniform, calm in the storm. Marcus Halden said, "Captain Cole, you were my best." Evan Cole said, "I was your pawn." Halden smiled faintly. Marcus Halden said, "No, you were my proof that loyalty has a cost." Grace Cole cried out, "He's bleeding out." Halden's eyes shifted toward Vance, then back to Evan, voice cold. Marcus Halden said, "Then let him die again." The storm swallowed the silence that followed, thunder like a final drum roll. The operatives stepped closer, rifles trained with precision. Evan Cole shouted over the rain. Evan Cole said, "Stand down, this isn't your fight." One soldier hesitated, then froze as Iris Kade appeared at Halden's side. Iris Kade said, "Obey your general." Her pistol pointed without tremor. Grace Cole whispered, "We can't win." Evan Cole's grip tightened on his sidearm. Evan Cole said, "We don't have to win. We just have to show them the lie." He pulled the page from his jacket, water dripping from its edges. Marcus Halden said, "That paper is nothing." Evan Cole raised his voice, louder than the thunder. Evan Cole said, "Then why are you so afraid of it?" The soldiers shifted, doubt flickering like lightning across their faces. The moment balanced on the knife edge of silence. Halden's voice cut clean through the storm. Marcus Halden said, "Shoot him." No one moved. The silence roared louder than the rain. Iris Kade's eyes flicked over the hesitant soldiers, her tone sharp. Iris Kade said, "Follow orders." Evan Cole's hand trembled as he thrust the page higher, his words striking like gunfire. Evan Cole said, "This is proof. They fabricated enemies, staged battles, buried men like Vance to sell you wars." Grace Cole cried, "Look at him." The spotlight swung, catching Vance's broken face. Noah Vance said, "I was never dead." His voice cracked but carried. The soldiers faltered, barrels lowering by inches. Marcus Halden barked like thunder. Marcus Halden said, "Lies. You think one ghost changes anything?" Evan Cole's voice tore through the storm. Evan Cole said, "One ghost can haunt forever." The storm reached its peak, rain slashing sideways, lightning exposing every shadow. Evan Cole shouted, "If you want me silent, you'll have to bury me too." He tore the page in half, then in quarters, letting the scraps scatter into the storm. Soldiers watched the fragments swirl like burning ash in rain. Marcus Halden's eyes narrowed, fury breaking his mask. Marcus Halden said, "You just killed yourself." Evan Cole leveled his pistol, shoulders squared, lightning painting him in white fire. Evan Cole said, "Then I'll die speaking." Iris Kade raised her gun, rain dripping off the barrel. Grace Cole clung to Evan, whispering, "Don't." Noah Vance lifted his shackled hand weakly, voice rasping. Noah Vance said, "Truth's already out." They saw. The fragments plastered across soldiers' boots, ink bleeding visible. For the first time, Halden's authority cracked. The storm had subsided, leaving only the echo of water dripping from the rafters. The lockyard was a war zone of broken glass and discarded weapons. Evan Cole stood in the center, soaked to the bone, as the last remnants of the floodwater receded into the drains. Grace Cole stood at his side, her hand gripping his arm. Grace Cole said, "You didn't have to do that." Evan Cole's eyes remained fixed on the broken page scraps scattered on the ground. Evan Cole said, "They were never going to let us walk away." The silence around them felt like a coffin lid closing. A distant siren wailed, growing louder. Marcus Halden's voice rang out, cold as the night air. Marcus Halden said, "The game is over, Captain." Evan Cole turned, his face unreadable, and walked toward the wreckage of what had once been the truth. He said, "The game was rigged from the start." Grace Cole said, "What now?" Evan Cole looked at her, the weight of their decisions pressing down. Evan Cole said, "We expose them all." The siren grew closer. The first of the reinforcements arrived, a convoy of black SUVs pulling into the yard, tires hissing over wet asphalt. The soldiers inside remained masked, their eyes scanning every corner. Iris Kade stepped from one of the vehicles, still calm, still calculating. Iris Kade said, "You're playing a dangerous game, Cole." Evan Cole turned toward her, his jaw clenched. Evan Cole said, "I'm done playing." Iris Kade took a step closer, her tone almost pleading. Iris Kade said, "You think you can expose Halden and live?" Evan Cole said, "I don't care about surviving anymore." Grace Cole stepped between them, her voice trembling with urgency. Grace Cole said, "This isn't about revenge. This is about truth." Iris Kade's gaze shifted to her, a flicker of something unreadable passing through her eyes. Iris Kade said, "You think it's that simple?" Evan Cole's voice hardened. Evan Cole said it never was. He raised his hand, signaling Grace to stay behind him. The tension crackled in the air as Iris Kade stepped closer to Evan. The soldiers behind her were silent, waiting for a command. Iris Kade said, "You have no idea what you're up against. Halden's reach is everywhere." Evan Cole's eyes never left her. Evan Cole said, "Halden's reach ends tonight." Iris Kade's lips curled into a tight smile. Iris Kade said, "You're out of time. You're already dead, Cole." Evan Cole said, "Then let me die fighting." Grace Cole whispered, "Evan." She reached out, grabbing his arm, but Evan Cole gently shook her off. The soldiers behind Iris Kade started moving, surrounding them in a perfect perimeter. Evan Cole stepped forward, determined. Evan Cole said, "You think I'll stop? You think this ends with you?" Iris Kade's smile faltered, just for a moment. Iris Kade said, "You've made your choice." Evan Cole nodded. Evan Cole said, "And so have you." The first shot rang out like the cracking of a skull. A soldier fell, blood staining the wet concrete. Evan Cole didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. He dove behind cover, pulling Grace with him. Iris Kade's voice sliced through the chaos. Iris Kade said, "Kill him." The soldiers advanced, guns trained on the two of them. Grace Cole screamed, "Evan!" Evan Cole pressed her against the wall, his voice firm. Evan Cole said, "Stay down and stay quiet." He pulled his own gun, eyes scanning for any movement. The rain hissed against the concrete, mixing with the crackle of gunfire. Iris Kade's voice was steady, almost clinical. Iris Kade said, "This is it. This is where it ends." Evan Cole's hand tightened around the grip of his weapon. Evan Cole said, "Not tonight." He peeked around the corner, targeting the nearest soldier. Evan Cole's gunfire echoed like a warning to the storm. One soldier dropped, then another. The others hesitated, confused by the sudden barrage. Grace Cole held her breath, eyes scanning the chaos. Evan Cole said, "Keep your head down." His voice was low, but steady, as he reloaded and fired again. A soldier behind him shouted, "Cover him!" The perimeter tightened, and a second wave of soldiers rushed forward. Evan Cole's mind raced, calculating their moves, calculating his next step. Grace Cole whispered, "We can't outrun them." Evan Cole said, "We don't need to outrun them." The storm continued to pour as the sound of gunfire drowned out the world. Evan Cole's eyes locked with Grace, an unspoken understanding between them. He would protect her. Evan Cole said, "We fight together." The lockyard was a graveyard of broken bodies and shattered dreams. The storm had calmed, but the damage lingered in the air. Evan Cole stood in the middle of the carnage, his pistol smoking, his chest heaving. Grace Cole stood beside him, her face a mask of fear and disbelief. Grace Cole said, "Is it over?" Evan Cole glanced around at the fallen soldiers, their bodies crumpled in the wet concrete. Evan Cole said, "For them, it is." A distant siren wail signaled the arrival of more reinforcements. Evan Cole clenched his jaw, his eyes scanning the horizon. He wasn't done yet. Marcus Halden's voice boomed from the speakers overhead. Marcus Halden said, "You think this is victory, Captain? You think you've won?" Evan Cole's lips curled into a bitter smile. Evan Cole said, "I don't need to win. I just need to survive long enough for the world to see what you've done." The sound of approaching vehicles filled the silence, but Evan stood firm, knowing that the real battle was just beginning. The distant rumble of vehicles grew louder as the convoy approached. Evan Cole turned toward the incoming threat, his heart racing but his mind focused. Grace Cole said, "They're coming for us." Evan Cole said, "They always do." The convoy of black SUVs stopped in the yard, and Halden's men stepped out, heavily armed and cold-eyed. Iris Kade emerged from one of the vehicles, her gaze fixed on Evan. Iris Kade said, "You've made your choice, Captain." Evan Cole said, "It's not over yet." He looked at Grace, then back at the approaching soldiers. Iris Kade's voice rang out, emotionless. Iris Kade said, "You're dead already." Evan Cole shook his head. Evan Cole said, "Maybe, but I won't die without the truth in the open." He turned to Grace. Evan Cole said, "Stay behind me." Grace Cole hesitated, then nodded, trusting him even now. The tension in the air was thick, like a storm about to break once more. The soldiers advanced, their boots echoing like the march of inevitability. Iris Kade stepped forward, her gun trained on Evan. Iris Kade said, "You've crossed the line, Cole. It ends here." Evan Cole's eyes narrowed as he held his ground. Evan Cole said, "The line was crossed long before I ever picked up a gun." The soldiers behind Iris Kade shifted, unsure of their orders. Grace Cole clung to Evan, her voice soft but urgent. Grace Cole said, "We can't do this alone." Evan Cole's hand brushed hers, a silent promise to protect her at all costs. Evan Cole said, "We're not alone." From the shadows of the yard, a figure stepped forward, cloaked in darkness. It was Liam Drake, his face marked by fear, but also resolve. Liam Drake said, "You're not alone, Cole." He raised his weapon, ready to fight. A standoff hung in the balance. Iris Kade's finger hovered over the trigger, her eyes cold, calculating. Iris Kade said, "You'll never win, Cole." Evan Cole said, "I'm not trying to win." The sound of helicopters overhead interrupted the moment, their blades slicing through the air like a blade through flesh. Marcus Halden's voice rang over the loudspeakers. Marcus Halden said, "It's over. You've lost." Evan Cole's grip tightened on his gun. Evan Cole said, "I haven't lost until I've seen you exposed." He turned to Grace. Evan Cole said, "Get ready." The helicopters swooped in, their searchlights illuminating the yard in blinding beams. Evan Cole said, "We're getting out of here." He made a break for the far exit, his legs pushing against the wet ground, knowing the battle was about to change. Grace Cole followed, her heart pounding in her chest. Evan and Grace ran through the gates, the thunder of helicopters following them like an unholy pursuit. Behind them, Marcus Halden's orders echoed, but the truth had already begun to spread. Evan Cole said, "We've exposed the lie. The world will know now." Grace Cole, breathless but hopeful, looked up at him. Grace Cole said, "But at what cost?" Evan Cole's face softened for a moment. Evan Cole said, "We paid the price so no one else would have to." The night was still and silent as they crossed the threshold. The world was no longer the same, and neither were they. But the war wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The faint sound of helicopters faded into the distance as Evan and Grace disappeared into the shadows, knowing that the truth they had fought for would haunt those who tried to bury it.